Good morning and welcome to the Crüe NFC Roundtable. Got a couple questions for you. What are the key position battles around the NFC? What rookies are going to make the biggest impact this year for their teams? I don't know. We're going to dive right back into it eventually, of course. Joined, as always, is our friend, Mr. Mike Sidoris. Don't hate him because he's a Bucs fan. Hate him because, well, he's got the face for radio. Mike, how are we doing this morning?
There you go. All right, Andy, how are you, sir?
Mediocre at best. Well, I'm glad we decided to talk about nothing but the Bears today.
I mean,
where
is everybody?
Why'd you make that look?
No, I'm good with it. We can waste the whole 10 minutes talking about the Windy City Warriors, if you will. Due to family issues, Brian won't be with us today, and Stout and Jerry are both on the grind. So it looks like we just got the two best-looking guys on the show on today. At least the most intelligent, right?
You're just describing me in both instances. Thank you.
That's why it's so dark over there.
That's the other reason. Because it's bright and sunny here in Florida. So
we're hitting the mid 60s today, so we're getting ready for summer up here.
Yeah, no, it's been the early mid 90s with somewhat of a relatively high heat index and humidity. It's been interesting.
I don't know. So let's go up north, shall we? So since this is the part of the show I usually sleep, I'm going to have to stay awake this time. So let's get into it, brother.
I thought you were sleeping every other time, too. So the Bears have, as usual, they've just done all kinds of stuff. So I don't know if they're just kind of throwing a whole bunch of stuff against the wall, seeing what sticks. I don't know what the case might be. However, let's see. The updated list for Chicago's undrafted free agent signings. There's 17. So, and when we're going to have to go through each and every one of these. So hopefully by hour 3, we should be So you have everything from Gene DeLance, who's an offensive lineman from Florida. He's their first signing, essentially. And their last signing, of course, is Antonio Ortiz. He's an LS from TCU.
Hey, long snappers, man. That's the way to get into the league and make good money for a long time.
That's the thing. I want to see if you like, because it took me almost 2.5 hours to figure out LS. Left safety? Wait, I thought there was no. It kind of eventually got to me. But you remember Patrick Manley, of course. He was on the Bears for like 75 years, and well, he actually,
as of last year, he was the longest tenured Bear, right?
I think he was like, what was it, 15, 17 years, something like that. But the cool thing about that was he actually also had the distinction of never having flubbed a snap his entire NFL career.
Really?
I think he was probably averaging anywhere between $2 to $3 million a year for a handful of plays. For those Bears teams, it's probably about 30 to 40 snaps
for a normal
game.
I was going to say for a normal team that wouldn't be that big of a deal, but when you're snapping the ball 50, 60 times a game, and you don't, have a missed snap or a flub snap, or whatever you want to call it, that's pretty damn impressive. I mean, he's almost snapped the ball as much as Ryan Jensen did last year.
Huh.
And he's our every down center.
Just about. I'm surprised Cordell Patterson doesn't do that. Snaps the ball, runs back, gets it, kicks the ball, covers on coverage, and catches the ball.
So, what position battles do you see coming up there in the Windy City?
Here's where it's kind of interesting. Now, you actually have a couple of, 3, looks like it's 3, recently that is, wide receiver signings, undrafted free agents. Of course, you have Kevin Shea, wide receiver from Liberty. You got that one quarterback kid, of course, from Liberty, and, if he's used to throwing to him, I don't know if he's going to necessarily. But then you also have Cyrus Holder, wide receiver from Duquesne. Now, Kevin Shea, wide receiver from Liberty, he's not your prototypical wide receiver at 5'9", 166 pounds. But he very well may be grease lightning. Then you also have Henry Litwin, wide receiver from Slippery Rock at 5'10", 198 pounds. Now, you also have DeMontre Tuggle, running back from Ohio. And a couple of tight ends, Chase Allen from Iowa State and Jake Tungus from Cal. So what makes all that kind of interesting is that you have some incumbents there with the Bears, and if you're actually bringing in more to either, and granted, I will say that the wide receiver position has actually been quite light for the Bears. You still have possibly two number twos. Anyway, but
So,
I don't think you necessarily have like an actual genuine number one. Yeah, Mooney.
I mean, you really don't. There's still some free agents out there, but I don't think you go that route either. I think you're building. I mean, I say it every damn show. It's a 3-year plan. I think the Bears stick to it. I mean, what does your wide receiver room look like? You got Mooney and who? I mean,
exactly. You know, you have a couple, 2-3 people that they picked up. You know, the rookies that they actually drafted, but they're untested. You know, you haven't really gone through any actual hard-hitting, you know, practices and things like that. You might have had some OTAs and things like that, but other than that, that's about it. Now, with 3 other undrafted free agents, and that's where it also gets kind of interesting. You know, you still have, you know, the possibility of maybe a Judy coming over to the Bears or something like that. You know, at least a named wide receiver who would clearly be your number one. You know, and so if you have Justin Fields, who by all reports is actually leaps and bounds further than when he was last year. I think even just with the change of offenses, that would actually help even you and I, for example, be a better quarterback from going from that offense from last year to a new offense that I think is more designed. I think it's more designed to actually be able to, you know, go down the field, give them an opportunity to score.
Yeah.
So with these wide receivers pushing the current incumbents, I don't know. I think that's actually a better thing than anything.
I mean, that's probably one of the key spots of, I don't know, transition, I guess you'd say, for the Bears is their offensive specialty weapons, really. I mean, you got your skilled sets, if you will, your skilled positions, your running back, your wide receivers, your tight ends, and your quarterback. You really don't have, I don't want to say proven commodities there, but, I mean,
it's absolutely true.
I mean, Billy cracks me up here, right? He's with Fat First and 10 tailgate up in Chicago, and they really do a great tailgate. And he might be right. I mean, like I say it all the time, 3 years, Bears fans, stick around. You've been through the garbage and muck for so long. 3 years, you're going to be on top. You're going to be looking down that mountain. But really, Justin Fields brings something new to the table that I don't think the Bears fans have seen. You're going to have someone with a skill set similar to Cordell Stewart, except he can throw. I mean, Cordell he could throw, but you didn't know where. He was like sporadic, whereas Justin Fields is an accurate quarterback. He can throw on the run. He brings that other option or other dimension to the quarterback room, really, or the position, with the fact that he can bring the read option to Chicago until they get those weapons they need in the outside. So, I mean, wide receiver is an interesting position there in Chicago.
Right, and that's where it gets kind of interesting also is the fact that, you know, if you're looking at an actual team sport in and of itself, and, you know, I've been saying it for a long time, you know, it's not necessarily the player. I mean, granted, you know, if you have like a Jerry Rice, for example, something, you know, one of those type of players, they're going to make an impact no matter what. But if you have a bunch of, you know, unknowns or a bunch of rookies or a bunch of, you know, things that the old offense would not have necessarily had that opportunity. You know, you had a spotty offensive line, for example, last year. You had your wide receivers were just kind of doing their own thing because I think everybody's seeing the writing on the wall. And so I don't know if the effort was there. You got to hope that the effort was there, just being professional.
So what you're saying now is you think Nagy lost that team before season ended, before halfway point? What? I mean,
well, for all intents and purposes, I think he probably lost them actually relatively early, and everybody's just like kind of on cruise control. You can't be third and like 37 and run the ball. you're not skill set.
You're not wrong.
And I think with the offensive linemen, or at least with the players that they're actually either drafting, unsigned free agents, whatever the case is, it's not necessarily for that particular person who's going to make that Hall of Fame style impact, which would be great, but it's going to be something that's going to be scheme oriented.
Hey, T.O.'s still out there. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm joking, but would it hurt? I mean, does it?
Have you seen a recent picture of him?
He's jacked,
and it makes me sick that he's that old and still looks like that.
Right? He claims he can still run a 4.5. I mean, you don't need him to run a 4.5. You need someone out there that can teach receivers, 3rd and 8, what route tree I need to hit, where I need to plant and go, where I need to make my look for the ball to keep the defensive back guessing when it's coming. I mean, those are all things you need from a veteran receiver, and the Bears just don't really have that right now.
Well, yeah, but T.O. is under that other contract with that other major organization. Him and Johnny Manziel have been lighting it up lately. Mike
Vick just signed with FCF.
So I think that's one of those situations where I'm not saying that I want to get out there and get my head bashed in anymore, but we would have an opportunity to be able to do that as well. You have a shorter field. You're not running as much. After 2 or 3 plays, you take a cigarette break, beer break, whatever the case is.
To be fair, I don't think I could run it all right now.
I could probably jog slowly, a fast walk to the bench, actually. Let me know when you start. That's cool. But, you got all these guys that they still have that opportunity. They still have that want, the desire. The physical attributes might not be there anymore, but you never know.
I mean, Julio Jones is still out there. I mean, he's not going to be Julio Jones 5 years ago, but he's still a talent. He still can educate and coach these young receivers. I mean, I don't know if the Bears have flyers out there or not, but that's somewhere I definitely would be looking.
Right. And that's a good point, too. I mean, who do you get? All the other sports do it. You get a couple of guys. You have to, of course, pay them, a couple million, whatever the case might be, just to be that teacher. Because peer-to-peer, you're going to listen more than it's going to be coach to player.
Right.
So, but finishing up with the Bears here, and they're undrafted free agents. Micah Dew from Treadway, defensive line, 6'4", 308. So, have very little to no idea who he is, but good size, though. Carson Taylor, defensive end, Northern Arizona, 6'3", 241. Probably one of those speedsters off the corner. So here's an interesting one. Jack Sanborn, inside linebacker from Wisconsin, 6'2", 234. Kind of surprised he actually didn't get drafted. He's actually a decent player. And Wisconsin, of course, they always tend to do certain positions well. So Christian Albright, inside linebacker from Ball State. C.J. Avery, linebacker from Louisville. Jalen Jones, cornerback from Mississippi. That could be kind of interesting because Bears are always looking for naturally secondary and things like that. And I do remember seeing a few highlights from Mr. Jones here. He's actually a pretty solid player. Relatively quick, hard hitter, that kind of thing. Allie Green, quarterback from Missouri. See, you might be pushing your incumbents too because you might not be able to find yourself a Kyle Fuller from a few years ago, but you never can tell. A.J. Thomas, safety, Western Michigan, and John Alexander, safety from Charlotte. So you really see what they're kind of doing here, loading up and seeing if they can, again, throwing something against the wall and see what'll stick.
Yeah, you got to have camp bodies too, though. You know what I mean? You got to have someone to go against. And, I mean, absolutely. I could be a tackling dummy for $700,000 a year. It's not a problem. I've already got the dummy part down.
So you got one of those things done. I'm not saying which. But yeah, for that you do that for a couple 2-3 years, and you'd be doing pretty good. Now, if you want to continue with the North here, we can go to the Green Bay Packers. Which
go ahead, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to pain you more than it does me watching you talk about the Green Bay Packers. But
they did stuff with players. Who cares?
you know, what's interesting about Green Bay is they're still in that window, but you can see the window closing, right? You can see, Aaron Rodgers has got to be ruffling a few feathers still. You can see that they've not really invested yet again into that offensive specialist, wide receiver, running back, skilled set. Most teams would have done that by now for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't know what more the guy has to do, but
I don't know. Maybe they're looking to possibly get their money's worth. If you're going to pay a guy $5 gajillion, you maybe get his.
no,
his
I
tail whipped
get
a
it.
little bit. Who knows?
Oh, I get it, but Jesus God, you got to get the man some help. He's carried the team for how many seasons? And you can't say he hasn't. He's made other players better. I mean, players that wouldn't start on most teams, he took them to NFC Championship games. He took them deep into the playoffs. He's won the North how many years in a row? I mean, where is the battle in Green Bay? Where I just don't see it.
Well, see, the problem with that, they need wide receivers just like so they have the same needs as like the Bears, for example. It's just that their quarterback is a little bit more proven, of course, on the Bears quarterback. Cool. But they are at least working on their offensive line, which of course they needed. They got a few offensive linemen. They got a few tight ends coming in. Wide receivers that are coming in, that kind of thing. But you're absolutely right in the fact that you still have that need there, and if you're still technically the man within the division, you would expect them to actually do more in order to be able to maintain that level. Not that Minnesota is going to be able to take them over because, of course, Kirk Cousins. I don't know if you've seen the meme. What was it? The one kid's name from a couple of years ago. He was, of course, a senior in high school or something like that. He was already jacked. He was like 6'4", like 240 pounds or something like that. And then, of course, he was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school. And Kirk Cousins was showing his junior year in high school. Looked like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And the caption was simply, this is why Alabama's not calling me. I'm sure there's a couple other reasons, but Kirk Cousins, not to go off on that tangent, so to speak, but Kirk Cousins is definitely on the plus side of game manager. He makes the plays that he needs to, and I will grant that. However, he doesn't have that it factor. You say the name, and you're like, ooh, whether it's a nickname or not. You say Jimmy G, and granted there might be some Snickers in the background or whatever the case is, but he's actually done what he's done to be able to put his team and himself in a position to possibly succeed in the future. Aaron?
You still gotta, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers potentially still has Green Bay in the mix every single season. Now, you give him – they drafted that wide receiver, in the second, I believe?
Second.
Yes, but is he going to come in and be day one wide receiver one? Is that what you're really expecting? I don't know. It's just really tough for me to stand here and tell you Green Bay is going to win this division. The North – much like the Bears, the NFC North is on a 3-year plan. Everyone's waiting out Aaron Rodgers, really. I mean, you got Minnesota, who's got Kirk Cousins, who's just in the mix enough. They should win the North this year. You got the Bears that are one position away, and if he can really do well, they can build around him. They're still not sure on Justin Fields, and how can they be, right? So Green Bay, and then you got the Detroit Lions. Well, I understand Detroit's on the ups, but it's so far down to come up. You're just now, hitting the floor of the basement. You know what I mean? You're just now getting into the yard to play ball.
Well, the good thing is, you remember a couple of years ago, Detroit went, 0-16. And then, of course, was it last year? I think that was last year. Detroit liked to play the spoiler. Everybody picks, Green Bay, for example. Detroit, they go into Detroit, and Detroit beats them like 36-3.
Right.
Like, you guys are killing me. I think they have to work. They have to work out those intangibles to go from 0-16 to 1-15.
I really don't think Detroit's as far off as they seem, but like I said, everyone in that division is on that 3-year plan. The Bears just have it tuned up a little bit more high right now, whereas Detroit's still trying to find their way to where Chicago is, and Minnesota, unfortunately, is in that limbo area right now where if they don't win it this year, they're not going to win it next year or the following year.
Right.
I mean, they're resting on Dalvin, right? I mean, you got Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook stays healthy in Minnesota, they're a contender. Dalvin Cook goes down, and they're a pretender. I mean, it's just that simple.
Then you have to worry about Kirk Cousins' arm and the wide receiving core, and then is offensive line going to be able to?
They've got 2 solid receivers. Everyone forgets about Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, but those are 2 solid receivers.
But the quarterback has got to get the ball to him. He's got to get that.
No, I get that. That's what I'm saying. So if you don't have that running game to set up that pass, you don't have anything. If you got every team in the NFL keen on those 2 receivers, what do you have? Kirk Cousins throwing prayers.
Yeah, that's virtually what you have anyway, and that's that's been kind of the problem, with that. But with Detroit in and of itself, Detroit's actually made quite a few moves, and they have the opportunity to, because they've been so bad for so long that they have all these draft picks and stuff like that. When you have the first 10 picks seem to be Detroit Lions. That's how bad it is. You're bound to at least have a 2-14 team.
Well, Detroit drafted attitude. That's what I got out of their draft. They drafted people that they feel fit their character. They didn't draft. I mean, they got talented picks, don't get me wrong, but every one of those people that they drafted are someone that you can look at and say, oh, he's got a mean streak. Oh, he's going to brawl out there. He's going to give you what he's got. And I think that's what it's going to take right now. That's how they got to build. They got to get that attitude.
Right.
You know what I mean? They got to bring it up from the base.
So just to go through with the Packers, their transactions for the month of May. Let's see. They released kicker J.J. Molson. They signed long snapper Jack Coco. With a name like Coco, you can't go wrong. Tackle Jameer Johnson, they released. Quarterback Jair Alexander signed to contract extension. Who? What? Huh?
Yeah, Alexander's right. He's good.
That's at least one thing they've done.
He's a good corner.
He's a good corner. Let me see. Tight end Eli Wolf claimed off of waivers from the Indianapolis Colts. Wide receiver Chris Blair released. Linebacker Kobe Jones, tackle Rasheed Walker were both signed. Linebacker Quay Walker, defensive line Devontae Wyatt, guard tackle Sean Ryan, linebacker Kingsley. So you can kind of see what the Packers are doing. They're I hate to use the word circle of suck, as Brian would put it, but it's one of those things.
So we've loosely covered, Detroit and Minnesota. Is there something you wanted to add to those, or?
No.
All right. Let's go south, I guess, right? Since I'm the only other guy here. We'll go right to the best division of football.
Hold on.
All right.
Let's just put this up right away.
Oh no, I'll start with the lesser teams in the division, if you will.
Oh, the Bucs? Gotcha.
I don't have a list of transactions that they've made or moves that they've made, but I do have, what I think are position battles to look for, what rookies could possibly make an impact, and we'll just go from there. But let's go to Carolina, right? The Panthers are honestly, they're in flux right now. The whole team is pretty much it's all open, right? I mean, what position do you really think is set in stone there?
Quarterback.
No. No. I mean, what do you got? So,
running back.
I mean, I'm just going to go to a couple players that I think are on the bubble, on the verge of losing a job or roster spot, if you will.
Quarterback.
So,
running back.
Right now, you got C.J. Saunders, right? Kick returner. It looked like he was going to step into that position after they didn't draft much there, but they went out and they signed an all-pro in Andre Roberts. So if Roberts can do something other than return kicks, I think you're going to see the Carolina Panthers kind of just move on from Sanders and let Roberts take over special team duties, such as like kick returns, punt returns, bullet on kickoffs, your kick returner on your field goal. Those are positions that you need to fill. Not a lot of people think about that when they go into the season. They think of your first 11 offense, first 11 defense, and then they think those other guys on the sidelines just stand there the whole game, but a lot of them are specialists, like your long snappers and things like that. So I really think C.J. Sanders can be out of a job after training camp. And quarterback 2 is a huge thing up in the air right now. The Panthers signed P.J. Walker last year to a 1-year extension, or actually this offseason a 1-year extension, but then they just went out and they drafted Crüe, right? I mean, 94th pick. He's not picked because they had confidence. You know what I mean? He was picked because they feel they had a need and needed to be addressed. Now, could it be that he's going to take over the number 1? Yeah, probably. Probably before the end of the season, he will step up into that role. But I think right now he's going to slide into that number 2. And you might see P.J. Walker on the streets. You might see P.J. Walker just, kept on as an emergency quarterback. He'll be running a practice team for a while. But his roster spot might be in jeopardy going into week 1. Another one that gets overlooked a lot is Pat Alfileen. Very versatile offensive lineman last season. However, they picked up Bradley Bozeman, starting center, probably going into this year. They also drafted that dude Iquanu, 6 overall. So it's going to limit his reps interior. He's not going to be playing, your center guard positions, right? So what's left for him? They have him slated at left guard, but you got Brady Christensen, Cam Irving, and Deontay Brown there. So quite honestly, he could just slide down all the way to be a rotational player, kind of like your utility lineman. Give your guard a breather, give your center a breather. He could play both sides of the ball there, but I mean, his roster spot overall is in jeopardy there as well.
Well, let me ask you this now. So you're saying that Cam Newton's no longer playing for the Panthers?
I hate you. So, but really, I mean, they might be better off. I mean, Sam Darnold. Oh God. My first question there is why. My second question there is why, and my third question there would be, what the hell were you thinking? Why did you think Sam Darnold was a great idea? And you're sticking to it. That's your story, and you're sticking to it. So I appreciate the fact that you're sticking by your guns, but really, I mean, it's only a matter of time before Crüe steps into that role. And if he don't cut it, they're going to be drafting a quarterback in a year, 2 years. So, just seeing with the unfortunate joke of being Cam Newton, he's actually been kept himself in shape the whole thing. He could probably slide over to a tight end, for example, and probably be more productive, certainly than as a quarterback of these days. So I'm not really sure where that fall off came from. Too many concussions, whatever the case might be. But you know what? I really think Cam Newton changed that Super Bowl when he stared at that fumble. I mean, I think that moment has gotten to his head, and it's kept him where he's at. His game kind of fell off a little after that. Granted, he had injuries and things like that, but I really think he's in his head most of the time.
Could be. Very well could be. But Carolina has so many different needs, either from wide receiver to, again, tight end, linemen, both interior sides of the ball to secondary to.
You know what's funny is everyone thinks the running back position is solid in Carolina. And I mean, really? Has he had a full season? I mean, McCaffrey was good and has great talent, but the man cannot stay healthy.
These days, no. It's been a good 2-3 years since he's been playing full season.
He's a Lamborghini body sitting on 4 donuts. He's sitting on spares.
Yeah.
I almost swore there, so good editing on my behalf. But seriously, he's good for 4 games, right? You get 4 games out of him. He gets injured. He'll be back for a game, tweaks that injury again. I mean, they ran him to the ground, right? And now they're in a position. Now they're in a position to where, like, what are they going to do? You're going to let him walk? You'll lose whatever fan base you have left there, right? So,
yeah,
it's a real tough position in Carolina.
The first 3 years that he was actually playing, and he of course didn't miss a snap, whatever the case was, but they also ran him. You're absolutely right. 1,700 times a game. You simply can't do that. And you're now dealing with that. You're absolutely right. So, you definitely need to start looking into options for sure. So not only do you need to look for options, but you need to look for I would actually put McCaffrey as your third down, possibly even second, third down, back, just simply because you're going to have, because he still has the hands. He could definitely give you some yards.
Give him a year off. Give him a year to where he can just play and not be your offense. You might see a different running back going forward. But I'm not scared if I were playing the Panthers of any offensive weapon they have right now.
Currently, their defense, of course, that's been relatively solid, but relatively. But
they're all
field,
so it doesn't matter. Donnie. Anyway, I'm assuming that's you, Johnny. I'm not sure, so what's up? But let's go to New Orleans real quick. They have some weird situations in New Orleans, right? Because you've got a tight end that was your quarterback, that was your halfback, that was your wide receiver, that punted the ball twice, but now he's your tight end again. And
that's you?
That's Taysom Hill, right? So he's going to slide into your tight end spot, and he's probably going to take – you got to have him on the field, right? If you're New Orleans, you got to have something that you can rely on.
You have to have him on the field because he fills like 4-year positions. You don't want to go out there, 7 against 11.
Right. So the Saints running back room, right? You got Alvin Kamara's legal issues still pending, still up in the air. The only veteran running back they have on roster other than Kamara is Ingram. And you'll see those two, or you'll see Ingram slide into that number 1 spot if something were to happen, with Kamara being suspended or whatnot, whatever. But after that, you don't have anybody, right? So the battle for your number 2/number 3 running back spot is going to be between Dwayne Washington and Abraham Smith.
Well, it certainly seems that Kamara is definitely a solid number 2 for sure, especially when you look at what he pulled at the the Pro Bowl and all that other stuff. But so you actually have a quarterback who I don't know if it's just because he throws a lot or whatever the case is, but he's relatively consistent. And granted, he might throw an okay amount of interceptions, but you're also getting a decent amount of touchdowns out of it, which is kind of odd because since he came into the league, Jameis Winston being consistent and good has never really been one of those things that have been synonymous.
Last season, Jameis Winston was on a path to be the top quarterback in the NFL, if not top 10, at the very worst. The offense fits him, really. They got Michael Thomas coming back this year, too, so it's like having 2 number 1 picks going at your wide receiver core, really, because you're getting Thomas back and you're getting Olave out of Ohio State. Two Ohio State wide receivers are going to anchor that offense right now.
But who you got coaching? Ain't Sean Payton?
It's not Sean Payton, but that offense is going to stay the same.
You think it's going to stay exactly the same? They're going to keep Payton's offense.
Oh yeah. Why reinvent the wheel?
I will grant that, but whoever the coach is going to be, offensive coordinator, whatever the case might be, they're going to want to put their little spin on things, and that's understandable. But you can't necessarily have the offense from a coach who's no longer there, a quarterback who might be used to it, but he has a different skill set. He seems to be these days more of your pocket passer as opposed to he can scramble. That's understandable, but
Winston's not really
He's
a
coming from a
scrambler.
Cowboys fan. Come on, man.
Winston doesn't really scramble per se. He just finds a way to work himself out of trouble in the pocket. I mean, granted, he can run the ball. He can move with the ball, but he's not your 4.6 sub 4.6 40 quarterback. He's just very, I guess I'd say, elusive. You know what I mean? He's not. Mm-hmm. He's kind of Big Ben-esque, right? Big Ben could stand in the pocket when he was young. Big Ben, when he got older, was basically an anchor that could throw the ball. But when Big Ben was younger, he would take the hits, still stand strong because he had his tree trunks for legs and be able to move himself out of that danger. That's Jameis Winston right now. You know, you're right. He does need some, not mental help, I would think, but he needs to realize he doesn't need to do it all. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And with Kamara there, I don't think he's got to worry about that as much. If
depending on how those legal troubles actually play out, if he does get your major suspension or something like that, then yeah, he's going to have to, but So with that offense. And with Jameis Winston performing as well as he's actually done in the recent past, which is still kind of surprising and shocking when you hear that. It's hard to and then you see the highlights. That's the difference. You're like, okay, well, I'll be doggone. Yeah, that was a good play. It was one of those things. Because
it's true.
His plays last forever. 5, 7, 8 seconds. I mean, that's forever in the NFL because you got as soon as that line breaks down, now he's gonna run for his life. People are scrambling. He just sees that one little guy and he chucks it up and
that's why Mike Evans helped Jameis Winston's career, right? You're throwing 50-50 balls to the best 50-50 receiver in the league. That's what helped him get his.
Mike Evans is mediocre at best.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm glad you mentioned the line, right? With New Orleans line, they just they got a huge hole to fill when they let go of Teron Armstead. And it's not going to be easy to fill. They did draft Trevor Penning, who's a big man, right? But is he ready? I mean, he's going to be battling with James Hurst for that left tackle or tackle spot in the Saints offensive line. And with the Saints, it's not the fact that you got to be a good pass blocker. It's you just got to be quick enough with your hands to get that pop out because that ball's supposed to be out within 3-4 seconds, right? But anyway, so yeah, that's one of the big, huge battles I see right now in New Orleans is the tackle spot, replacing Teron Armstead. It's going to be Penning. Penning's going to take that job. They're not going to waste their time, with that first-round draft pick and not let's see what they have as soon as they can. And then I just don't get this, right? The New Orleans Saints lose both their safeties. They lose Williams and Jenkins this year.
Jenkins, right?
But they'll be better. they pick up the Honey Badger.
That's right. He did come over from where is he? Cardinal.
He was a Chief, but yeah.
Yeah.
And they have Marcus May, who's going to be another safety for them, but he's going to be out with DUI suspension probably from the DUI he got last season. So it's going to leave you with JT Gray and the Honey Badger for a couple of weeks, but I really think they're in a position right now that they'll be better at that position with the loss of the two and then bringing in the Honey Badger and letting let Marcus May fill the spot. But other than that, I mean, I'm done talking about the Saints. I know everyone's falling asleep because we're not to the good team yet, but one more team to go, right? Got the Falcons we gotta talk about. And the top battles positions or position battles for the Atlanta Falcons, you're looking at Cordero Patterson, right? What position is he gonna play?
Has he been it's easy to say what position isn't he going to play?
Well, no, he's got to battle with himself to find out, what he's going to start at the start of the game.
Gotcha.
But no, seriously, their top positions of concern really is going to be your guard spot. You got Wes Schweitzer, whose has never taken a snap in the NFL. competing with Ben Garland, who's a defensive tackle who switched to offensive line last season and has played 49 snaps. That's your depth right now. That's what you're looking at. Battle it out. Really? That's what you're giving me? That's protecting your franchise?
Right. And so you're like, oh, you just have some big, galoot, whatever the case might be, who's just blocking people. Offensive line is a lot more complicated than people really give it credit for sure. Without joking aside, seriously, legitimately one of the smarter positions on the field, of course, is offensive line. Different blocking schemes and things like that, and when you have, let's just say, two players with limited experience at the position battling it out, I think they might want to go for even another undrafted free agent from even a smaller school, for example, that would give you more experience.
You know the expression "iron sharpens iron."
Well, as a matter of fact, I what?
But there's no iron here. There's nothing. You got a defensive tackle that switched to guard out of necessity last season, and granted, he knows defensive moves, so he's one step up from Johnny come lately off the street, really. But I mean, you got to learn punching and hand placement, and
but you still have that defensive line mentality. You're going to be too aggressive, which means you're going to get beat all the time. You're going to have the other defensive line in your backfield constantly.
That's their offense.
Either or.
I mean, that's their offense.
Look, if your offensive lineman was a defensive tackle, like I said, that aggression is only good to a certain point. If you're too aggressive, you're too overextended, next thing you know, you got your defensive, even if it's a good old-fashioned nose tackle or even one of your tackles, you're constantly being in that backfield. The quarterback's going to have an issue. The running back's going to have an issue. There's not going to be no time to throw. You're going to have, you want to talk about yak, you're talking negative yak, because they're going to get the ball 3, 4, 5 yards in, and they're going to end up losing another 2 or 3 yards with a defensive tackle straight around their legs.
Yeah. So, yeah. The good thing about that is it's a right guard position, so you can hide it on the interior of your line, and hopefully your center and your tackle can help aid a little bit. It's not like you got that out on the edge to where you're going to split out Kyle Pitts and not have a blocker helping a tackle. You know what I'm saying? I know that's terrible to say, but
you're going to have those players like those Bosa's, like this Hutchinson kid, like, guys like that. They're going to be able to go from this side to this side. Okay, he's the weak one. I'm going over there.
Oh, yeah. No, I get you. But another key position, if you will, Atlanta needs to address, in my opinion. They drafted what's his name? Ritter?
Yeah.
Quarterback. To compete against Marcus Mariota. Now, Mariota was a Heisman Trophy winner. Mariota was a starting quarterback in the NFL. But Mariota was. You know what I mean? It's really. So I really think Mariota is going to start the season as your QB1, but I think they wait till after the Bucs game, week 5, week 6, to make that switch, right? You get Mariota beat up by all the good teams you're facing, and then you decide, you know what, we're going to let Ritter have a shot. I mean, do you think Mariota's the answer in Atlanta? Do you think that's something they should have put that much money into? It's
Mariota's probably going to have 30 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's probably even going to run for 30 touchdowns. That's game 1.
He does have a completion thrown to himself recorded.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do recall that. That was interesting. No, unfortunately, Mariota, I think, might be a little bit past his time and or prime. Not necessarily say he can't play, of course. It's just one of those things where I don't know if the game has just gotten too fast or whatever the case was, but I just don't necessarily see him being that player that they're.
There's just, in my opinion, there's just quarterbacks that are college quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Rick Meyer comes to mind. Rick Meyer was a great college quarterback. Johnny, I agree, but I mean, look at this, right? Mariota they're going to build the offense around his skill set if they plan on keeping him. Ritter's skill set isn't exactly what Mariota's is, except the kid is deceptively fast. Mariota has good arm strength. Ritter's got better arm strength. Mariota has better infield vision with the ball than Ritter does, but I don't think he has better decision making when throwing the ball than Ritter does. I would love it if Mariota starts the whole season because that's going to give the Bucs 2 wins going into the season.
And I do believe it's DDER, Ritter, not Ritter.
Yeah, it is. He was saying that because I didn't know how to pronounce it.
So having UCF play him and stuff like that, and having some familiarity with him, I remember when they the first year that they played, he, of course, you're like, wow, this kid will never make it. Next year, you're like, uh-oh, that's going to be a problem in the future. And then, of course, last year, he was a problem. He even took them all the way to the semifinals for the national championship. He is deceptively fast. His decision making is actually pretty good. His accuracy is actually well above average. And arm strength is well above average. So, and I think with Johnny saying, he might need a season, I agree. I can see him having an extended period on the bench just to get that learning. But I
agree. He needs a season to see NFL speed, to get no familiarity. But I don't think they can give him a season. And that's what happens. A lot of quarterbacks coming into the league is they get put on teams that don't have the patience and don't have the time to let them mature into that position.
You also have injury issues because I don't necessarily see Mariota being able to survive even half the season. I think you're right about that too.
Right.
There's a strong possibility after Game 4, after Game 5. Especially when you're playing the Bucs, that's an easy win for them. But
yeah. Anyway,
you are at some point this season gonna see that rookie quarterback from Cincinnati.
Yeah. Quit trying to cut into my time, Andy. You know what time it is. And we head to Raymond James Stadium. All right, battle positions in Tampa. The most intriguing to me, honestly, is left guard. Aaron Stinney, who was very crucial in the Bucs Super Bowl season, right? He came into the Super Bowl and pretty much just had his way with the Chiefs' defensive line. But he was signed to a year extension this year. Give him kind of like a prove it deal. The Bucs bring in Getke, drafted him second round. He's a big boy, big attitude. He kind of reminds me of Ryan Jensen. I just hope he has better discipline because we don't need 2 enforcers out there. You know what I mean? You don't need 2 people playing to the echo of the whistle. You don't need that reputation going into a game, right? You don't want the refs looking for that with 2 of your players. So, but yeah, you got Aaron Stinney, Getke, and Robert Hainsey. Hainsey's versatile. Was drafted to learn center from Jensen. He played all 3 years at Notre Dame. So it's not like he came from a slouch program, but I really think that Bucs didn't waste their second round pick on Getke without putting him in the starting rotation. He will start week 1. Stinney's going to get some reps, but I really think it's Getke's job. The next position that really is intriguing to me is the safety spot. The Bucs went out and got Keanu Neal and Logan Ryan, right? They lost Jordan Whitehead. Jordan Whitehead was the enforcer in the back end of that secondary. He just lacked ball skills, in my opinion. It wasn't worth the investment on someone that didn't make I don't want to say big play, but key play, right? He didn't get that turnover. He'd come up and lay the wood. He'd put a stick on somebody, put a helmet on somebody, but he just wasn't that safety, right? You have a great young safety in Antoine Winfield Jr. Play both spots, so it gives you versatility in who you're looking to put next to him. Bucs have Mike Edwards, who just simply is a ball hawk. Seems to be in the right place at the right time most of the time. He does have a tendency to get beat deep. He does bite on a double move occasionally, and as a safety, that's not something you really want. But he's gaining experience. He played a lot last year, played well in the role. They also brought in Keanu O'Neal, Logan Ryan. With Keanu O'Neal, it depends on how they use him. I think he's going to be more of your in-box safety. He played linebacker in Dallas, not well, but he has that mentality. You know what I mean? He's an in-the-box safety. Logan Ryan, I really think, is going to slide over to your slot corner and take snaps away from Sean Murphy-Bunting. Bunting's got a big camp coming up this season. If he doesn't play well or show out this camp, he's going to find himself.
Oh, sorry.
On the outside looking in. No, we got 20 minutes. So wide receiver 4, 3, however you want to look at it. With Chris Godwin being out, you've got a spot that's going to be filled by Russell Gage going into the number 2 spot. But number 3 start of the season. Number 4 probably after. I'm hoping that Godwin's back before week 5, but I don't think he will be. So I think he comes back week 5. But you got Tyler Johnson, who just didn't prove it last year. This is his year to prove he belongs. Go ahead.
I remember reading about that with that exact thing right there. Tyler Johnson, of course, it's like it's going to basically be a one and done. So I think he's just more consistent. You throw a little consistency there, and I think he's going to save himself his job. That's for sure.
He only dropped 3 balls according to PFF, right? But he gets no separation. And to be a receiver in this offense, you've already got Mike Evans, who's your jump ball receiver. You got Chris Godwin, he's your shifty, get open downfield receiver. Tyler Johnson doesn't have the speed to be your burner. So he's got to be your separation receiver. He's got to be someone that's willing to go over the middle and make those difficult catches in traffic. And he just didn't get that separation last year to where you could use him that. You got Scottie Miller, who always one route, right? Scottie Miller, if he makes the team this year, it's going to be on special teams. He's going to be your bullet. He's going to be your gunner on your kickoffs. He's going to be your return man, possibly on punts as rotation or as your backup depth there, but I don't see him being your punt returner. He's just going to be your – what was the guy from Dallas? They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Not Yates. Bates. He's going to be like Billy Bates, right? Just a special teamer.
Bates?
I think it's Bates. Gets his licks in. But I really think you're going to see Rashawn Perriman step into the role as your number 4 receiver this year. Great blocker. I don't know. Some terrible school down south, I heard. But he's a good downfield blocker. He has first-round draft talent. He was drafted in the first round, but just never lived up to it. He played well with Winston a couple of years ago. He played well with Brady last season. I really think he might slide in your number 4. I think Cyril Grayson's going to make it onto the be your number 5 spot. He kind of exploded last year with Brady's guidance and tutelage. And you might see Jalen Darden only make the team for special team purposes. And then the last spot I got, because we're almost out of time, I don't know if you've noticed, we've been going about these Bucs for a good 5-7 minutes now, is a tight end spot.
I know, for about 30 of those minutes.
We got the tight end spot. You know, Cam Brate, if Rob Gronkowski doesn't come back, Cam Brate's your number 1. Good veteran tight end.
What are the chances Rob Gronkowski is not going to? Because, with the division being as easy as it is this year, you have a real good chance of, you have a couple of tough games, but you have a real good chance to go deep into the playoffs and possibly even get another ring. You really want to see him skipping out on that?
You know what? I think Gronk's just playing with – I'm about 80-20 right now, but I think he's playing with the media more than anyone else. I think the Bucs know what's going on. I think they have an idea of what to expect from Gronk coming in. But even if they have Gronk, you've got Rob Gronkowski and Cameron Brate as your 1 and 2. You did just draft Otten, who, if he wasn't injured, would have won a lot higher. He's a good receiving tight end and has the ability and want to block. And I think that's huge for a tight end in the NFL this year or this season or in this era of the NFL is to have a tight end that has the willingness and want to block. You know what I mean?
You're right.
So, and they drafted Kieft. Can't even say that guy's last name. I'm sorry. But he's just a solid blocking tight end. He might be able to catch, but you didn't get to see it on display. He might have the softest hands in the league, but you're not going to see it because he didn't do it prior. So basically what I was trying to get to is if Gronk does retire, you're going to have Cam Brate and Otten, which are essentially two receiving tight ends. You might see someone like Keith make the team on the everyday roster just because they need a good blocking tight end. But look at that.
So
almost out of time.
That's on the offense. Fine, fantastic. What about defense? Because I know you had a couple of defensive linemen that may or may not be re-signed.
You know, Logan Hall, I think, has to have a good camp. He's their top pick of this draft. He's got big shoes to fill too, because you're not re-signing Sue. You're not signing JPP. So, I mean, big shoes there, right? They're probably going to bring in another tackle, defensive tackle type, free agency. You know, who knows? They've got depth there, but they don't have someone that has that presence, I guess you'd say, that Sue would provide. But if Logan Hall doesn't, slide out to that outside linebacker spot for JPP, it's 3-4 outside linebacker, so it's a defensive end. I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. But if he doesn't fill that role well, the Bucs are really going to rely on Anthony Nelson and Cam Gill. That's a scary thought if you're a Tampa fan. All your eggs are in that basket of Logan Hall. So hopefully he catches them.
That just means your linebackers and your secondary they're gonna have to really step up for sure. Because if you don't have that pressure on that quarterback.
Well, you got JTS, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. It's his second season, looking to make that, sophomore leap, if you will, at your other outside linebacker. You got Shaq Barrett, who's going to play opposite him. And then, like I said, Logan Hall is going to essentially be your defensive end, defensive tackle in a 3-4, trying to replace Sue. But those are big shoes, man. I mean, luckily he's going next to probably the best nose tackle in the league right now, and I can't even think. Vita Vea. So you're in good hands right now, really. You just gotta hope that the rookie you drafted pans out to who you think he is. You there? I think we lost Andy, but we're gonna end the show anyway. We're at about 10 o'clock my time, 11 o'clock everywhere else that usually catches the show. Please like, follow, and subscribe. And we'll be here next Sunday. So until then, we are out.